factoring skill, but before we learn the factoring skill, let's review the 5 different ways that we've learned. Again, this was day 1, and 3 and 4 was day 2, and then we just learned day 3. So this is our 3rd day, and I even gave you an extra day on day 1, day 2, day 3. I made a worksheet, and now we're going to go on to day 4. But the first thing we learned was taking out the GCF, which ends up being a 3x. If you take a 3x out, you're going to have an x plus 2. The problem is given, and this is the answer. Okay, the next one was called a difference of squares. You put an x minus 5, and you put an x plus 5. And that's it for that one. Oh, this is also day 1, sorry. This is also a perfect square. This is 3x and 3x, and this is 4 and 4, but there's a plus sign, which makes it prime. So this is all we learned in day 1. In day 2, we learned if this was a 1, that this makes the problem really easy. You just put an x and an x, and factors of 34 are 17 and 2, and you check your ORI, and you get your 19x. So that's what we learned on day 2. Day 3 is a little bit harder because there's a number out in front. So I'm going to just show you that even the bigger numbers, I'm going to probably start with 6x and 7x. And I'm going to probably work with the 9 and the 1. Let's put the 9 and the 1 here. And that makes 63 and 6, so that's too big. So I need to play around with this. Remember, this is the trial and error one. I'm going to put the 1 here and the 9 here. Well, this makes 7x, a positive. And this out here makes 54x, a negative 54x. And a negative 54x and a positive 7x gives us a negative 47x, so we did it right. So these were the first 3 days of factoring. And this one is just playing around using your eraser and trying different combinations to come up with the middle term. Now comes the next way of doing it. It's called factoring by grouping. Factoring by grouping. So I want to come down here and just show you some things here. X minus y, the opposite of x minus y. These are all different ways of writing the opposite. A negative out in front of all of it is one way of writing the opposite. Changing the positive x to a negative x and the negative y to a positive y, or rewriting it as y minus x. Those are all the different ways you can write the opposites. So this one, what's the opposite of that? Negative 4 plus a squared. Or a squared minus 4. That's how you write the opposite of 4 minus a squared. And what happens when I'm getting into opposites is 3 divided by 3 in math is equal to 1. But when you divide by its opposite, it's a negative 1. So keep that in mind, that if you have x plus y divided by x plus y, that equals 1 because they're exactly the same on the top and the bottom. But if you have x plus y on the top and you have a negative x minus y on the bottom, those two are opposites of each other. And when you divide them out, it makes a negative 1. So keep that in mind when you're doing today's assignment. Okay, this is a unique way of factoring. And we're leading into what we're going to learn. But if you box these two in right here, they have something in common with each other. You need to find the greatest common factor between those two. And they have an x plus y in common with each other. And if you take an x plus y out of the first group, you're going to have a 5 left. And if you take an x plus y out of the second group, you're going to have a w left. So that's your final answer. X plus y divided by 5 plus w. Okay, this one, do you notice that they both have an m plus 4n in common? And when you take an m plus 4n out of that first one, you're going to have an m minus, there's a little imaginary 1 right there. Okay, the next one what I was talking about in that first page is, do you notice that these two are opposites of each other? This is a positive A, that's a negative A, that's a negative 3, and that's a positive 3. You're going to cross it out, and you're going to make it look like the other one. But if you're making it look like the other one, you also have to make this a negative. So keep that in mind. If they're the same, you don't have to do that. It's only when they're opposites. So they have an A minus 3 in common with each other, because I had to make them look the same, with the 5 minus 2A left. This is the next one again. Do you notice that these two right here are opposites? So I'm going to cross off the second one. I always do the second one. Make it A minus 2, and then change that to a positive. Now they both have an A minus 2 in common with each other. If I take an A minus 2 out of here, you have an A. If you take an A minus 2 out of here, you have a 3. So that's the first part of the assignment on the worksheet. And here comes the second part of this. This is a 4-termer. Count the terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to solve by grouping them. So I'm going to group the first two, and I'm going to group the second two. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the GCF out of here, and I'm also going to take the GCF out of here. So they have a y in common for the first group, and I'm going to have a 4y minus 3x left, plus I'm going to take a 3 out of the second group. They have a 3 in common and a z in common. When you take a 3 out of 9, I'm going to have a 3x left, and I'm going to have a negative 4y left. So this last page right here, whoops, down here, looks like that. It looks like it's right here. See, now you've got the a number with the parentheses plus something with the parentheses. It's set up like that. This page is to do what we just did. I'm going to cross this out and make it look like the other one. And I'm going to change this to a negative. Do you notice that they both have a 4y minus 3x in common? You're doing something wrong if these parentheses don't have something in common with each other, with a y minus 3z left. So for term, you're going to do it by grouping. You're going to group the first two, and you're going to group the second two. You're going to take an x squared out of the first group, and you're going to have an x plus, some people think it's 0, but x squared goes into x squared one time, plus, take a 2 out of the second group, you're going to have an x plus 1. I know I'm doing it right, because these two parentheses are either, the same or the opposite. So they both have an x plus 1 in common, with an x squared left over, with a plus 2 left over. I can check this to see if I did it right. X times x squared gives me x to the third. 1x squared, 1x squared. X times 2, 2x, and 1 times 2 is 2. So I checked it. Okay, last problem. You want your third term to be positive, so I'm going to rewrite my problem. Whenever you do 4 terms, you want that third term to be positive. So I rewrote it so that one of my terms was positive. Now that they are, I'm going to group them. And I'm going to take they have nothing in common, so this is a good one. I'm going to redo it one more time. I'm going to regroup it so that the xy and the negative 3x are together, and the positive 2y and the negative 6 are together. I grouped it wrong. I need to make sure I group them so that these two have something in common with each other, and these two are in common with each other. And the reason why I regrouped it is that I need my third term to be positive. I can take an x out of the first group, and I have y minus 3 plus. I can take a 2 out of that and have a y minus 3. And now I know I did it right because they both have a y minus 3 in common. And what do I have left if I take a y minus 3 out of here? X. What happens when I take a y minus 3 out of here? Plus 2. And that's all you're doing if it's a four-termer. But at the beginning, you're gonna be given where it's already on that stage. So my point is, do you see how it's already set up with parentheses with the x plus y in common? And on the second page, you have to get it to this stage. So this is already done for you on the first page. Okay, that's all we are learning.